Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this quick guide on understanding Lucky Hit in Diablo 4. I'm going to be trying a more casual format for videos like this that are only a couple minutes long, so it doesn't take me days to make them, and I can continue spending the majority of my time live working on new build ideas for Season 1. And I've always really loved working on new build ideas, but doing it live this time has actually been such a cool experience, and I've really enjoyed it way more than I thought I was going to. It's just been really cool getting to interact with some of you guys that are stopping by and hanging out in the chat. So I really just want to thank everyone that has come by the stream so far, and a really big shout out to my new friends in the chat yesterday who actually gave me the idea to try some videos like this. So thank you. And I want you guys to know that I really value your feedback and I'm always listening and trying to do better. So if you like this format or if you find this kind of video useful, I'd love to hear it in the comments, and consider dropping by the stream if you have any questions, feedback, or even new build ideas you want to try to theorycraft with me. You'll find me live on Twitch at Zikorik with a 0, and I've been getting in pretty consistent 10 to 12 hour days, and I plan to do that until I hit 100 on my new sorcerer. And if we have enough momentum by then and people are finding it valuable, then I may consider continuing at that point, but we shall see. Alright, without further ado, let's discuss the details of the Lucky Hit mechanic in Diablo 4. The examples I'll be showing here are on sorcerer, but these same concepts and principles apply to all classes and all builds. All right, so I think the best way to think about Lucky Hit is essentially the chance of a chance. And what I mean by that is essentially anytime you see something that says Lucky Hit on it, like let's take a look at Meteor, for example. See how this enchantment effect says Lucky Hit, up to an 8% chance for a meteor to fall on enemies. What that means is that's 8% chance of whatever the Lucky Hit chance is of the skill. That's not a straight up 8% chance of happening. And so if we look at Meteor itself, it has a Lucky Hit chance of 40%, right? And so for this Meteor to fall off of Meteor doing damage, it is going to be 8% of 40%, not 8% straight up. And this is going to vary based on the skill you are using. And it appears that only skills that do damage have a Lucky Hit chance. So you actually have to be hitting an enemy with something to have a chance at Lucky Hit. You'll see skills like Frost Nova and Ice Armor have no Lucky Hit chance in the tooltip, and I assume that's because they are not doing damage. They're not actually hitting a target. So in order to trigger Lucky Hit, you actually have to be hitting it with damage, and the type of damage you're doing to it is going to very much influence the Lucky Hit chance, right? Where we can see Fireball has a 33% chance. And so for Meteor, the Meteor enchantment, it's going to be an 8% chance of a 33% chance. Whereas if we are using Frozen Orb, that only has a 4% Lucky Hit chance. And so it's going to be 8% of 4%, which is not much, right? Not much. And so that's kind of the basic way you want to think about it. Is it's the chance of a chance. And you can always figure out the tooltip, the Lucky Hit tooltip will show you the first chance. And then to figure out how much it's going to proc, you got to look at the other skills you're using to try to proc it and basically take the chance of that Lucky Hit chance. And so let's look at the example that kind of led me to understand this better, which was as I was theory crafting and building this new build for Season 1 that I've been working on my stream. It originally started as like a lightning summoner build, and I was trying to get a bunch of lightning spears to proc to stack this conjuration mastery passive based off grabbing crackling energy, right? So what this enchantment effect does if you enchant lightning spear is every time you grab a crackling energy off the ground, those little lightning balls that you can get in a lightning spec, it gives you a 10% chance to conjure a lightning spear, right? And that's not a Lucky Hit, you see? So every time I grab a crackling energy, there will be a straight up 10% chance of it proccing. And so what I wanted to do with that is run alt Hydra with 2 Hydras up as well, and then run this as my second enchantment. And so you see this enchantment does say Lucky Hit, and it says your conjuration skills have up to a 30% chance to unleash a Frost Nova when hitting enemies. And so I'm like, 30%, that sounds like pretty high chance, right? I wonder how much I can get a bunch of lightning spears and hydras to proc my Frost Nova. And so I was trying it, and it was just procking not very much, like way less than 30%. And so that led me to basically figuring this out, which is essentially this 30% Lucky Hit. It's not a 30% straight up chance. Because it says Lucky Hit in the tooltip, it's a 30% chance of the Lucky Hit chance shown on these tooltips. So if Hydra's doing damage, Hydra has a 3% Lucky Hit chance, which is quite low, right? So basically, this procking, the Frost Nova enchantment effect procking off a Hydra is going to be 30% of 3%. So basically to get, this is like a super useful math trick I use all the time in games and life. If you want 10% of something, just move the decimal over 1. So 10% of 3% is 0.3, right? And if you want 1%, you move the decimal over 2. So 1% would be 0.03. And you can use these to basically figure out any percentage in your head, or if you have to jot it down, so math is more visual for some people. So that's, a very useful strategy to just get it on paper real quick. But basically to just do this in your head or on paper, you're going to want to do 10% of 3%, which is 0.3, right? And we know that 30%, the chance of this frost nova happening is 10 3%. So once we know that 10% is 0.3, it's just 0.3 plus 0.3 plus 0.3. So we know that Hydra now has a 0.9% chance by default of proccing our Frost Nova. So let's look at Lightning Spear, the other one I was trying to do. So Lightning Spear has a slightly higher inherent lucky hit chance here, right? 5%. And so 30% of 5%, 10% is 0.5 because you just move the decimal over 1. So 3.5s is 0.5 plus 0.5 plus 0.5. That's 1.5%. So 30% of 5% is 1.5%. And so now we know that Frost Nova, this enchantment effect, is not 30% straight up. It's actually a 0.9% chance to proc off of our Hydra, and it's a 1.5% chance to proc off of our Lightning Spear. Now, the other thing to keep in mind when you're considering all this is the fact that the speed, the amount of times you're hitting with whatever spell or skill or attack it is, will influence how many chances you have at this lucky hit effect happening. So in this example, between Hydra and Lightning Spear, the reason Lightning Spear has a slightly higher hit chance, I'm assuming, in the tooltip, is because it attacks slower than Hydra. Especially if you have two Hydras up, they're shooting very fast, right? So let's imagine you have a 100-sided dice, right? And to get Hydra to proc its lucky hit, which was 0.9%, you basically got to roll 100, right? Because it's 1% of 100%. So let's say you need to roll 100 on a 100-sided dice to get this Frost Nova to proc. When you're using Hydra, it's attacking super fast, right? So you're getting a bunch of chances at that roll. So you might get your 100 rolls in like 20 or 30 seconds. And so you will proc one in that 20 or 30 seconds. Whereas something like Lightning Spear, it's whooshing around and it's doing damage, but much more like slowly than Hydra, right? It's hitting maybe like once a second or once every 2 seconds as it like whooshes around. And so even though it has a higher lucky hit chance of 1.5%, you're rolling the dice less. So it's going to take longer for Lightning Spear, even though it has a higher chance, to actually proc a Nova, because it's whooshing around and not rolling the dice at that lucky hit chance nearly as often as something like Hydra, right? And so when you're thinking about this, it's basically this combination of how high is this chance of a chance based on the skills I'm using, and then how often am I using that skill to give me as many rolls as possible at triggering that effect, right? Okay, so the other really important thing to understand here is how building Lucky Hit into your gear or from your skill tree is going to influence your chances of getting these effects to proc. And it actually works differently than I was imagining, where it's not just like a straight up additive increase. Basically, what precision magic or having any sort of lucky hit on your gear is going to do is increase your see this lucky hit chance tooltip. Whatever percent increase you have the lucky hit on your gear is going to increase the lucky hit chance of that skill by that amount. And so for something like Hydra, let's say we get an extra 10% lucky hit, right? So I'm going to take a couple points out of my gigantic meteor, and let's just do 10 into precision magic for easy numbers, right? So now our lucky hit chance is increased by 10%. If I go look at my tooltip here we are, 10% bonus lucky hit chance, right? So what that means is now my Hydra's lucky hit chance is 10% of 3% higher, right? So basically the tooltip doesn't show decimals, but my lucky hit chance right now with Hydra should be 3.3%, right? And with Lightning Spear, you see the tooltip actually did go up. And because they get rounded past 0.5, right? So if this had gone up to 3.6, it would show 4%. But for Lightning Spear, it went up to 6% because 10% of 5% is 0.5, right? And so they basically, what this tooltip is right now is 5.5%, and it's rounding it up to 6%. But basically what we did is Lightning Spear's base lucky hit chance was 5%, right? That got increased by 10% by these 2 points in precision magic. So now it's 5.5%. And so basically this led me to understand that lucky hit is really only worth building. So it depends, right? It's going to be more valuable the higher the lucky hit chance of the skill. So if we come up here and look at something like Fireball, which originally had a 33% lucky hit chance, we can now see that it has a 36% lucky hit chance. And that's because the 10% increase to lucky hit we got from precision magic. 10% of 33% is 3.3. So 33% plus 3.3 is 36.3%. And so we can see that reflected right here in the tooltip. Fireball showing a 36% lucky hit chance. And so let's say, and gear works the same exact way, right? Where if I put on this ring, which gives me about 5%, and I take out one of these points, you're going to see the same exact numbers, 6%, 3%, 37%. That's just because my ring has a tiny bit more. See 5.8% instead of 5. But yeah, you get the idea. Basically, the gear and any skill points, and you can see in the tooltip it's reflected where it adds the same, right? It's just 10.8 instead of the 10 we had before because we replaced the 5 in the skill tree with the 5.8 here. So basically, what this means is, in order for it to be valuable to be building lucky hit, you really want to consider how high the lucky hit chance of the main skills are that you're using to try to proc your lucky hit. And the higher the default lucky hit chance on the skill, the more valuable building lucky hit will be, because you think of 33% on Fireball. Let's take the example that pretend you were able to get 100% lucky hit chance. I don't know if that's possible, but let's just say for the sake of this example, you could build, I'm going to take these out. Let's say you could build 100% lucky hit chance on your gear, right? So let's pretend this was 100%. What that would do is increase all of your skill lucky hit chances by 100%. So now, instead of Hydra being 3%, it would be 6%. Instead of Lightning Spear being 5%, it would be 10%. Instead of Fireball being 33%, it would be 66%. And so basically, the higher the base value of the lucky hit chance on the skill, kind of the further that stat is going to go if you're building it on your gear, the more value you're going to get out of it. And that's not to say that it wouldn't be useful for skills with a lower lucky hit chance, because you're still doubling that chance, right? Where if we consider the Hydra example we were talking about, originally the 30% chance lucky hit of this Frost Nova to proc of 3% was 0.9, right? But if we double the 3 to 6% by building 100% lucky hit chance on our gear, that 0.9 is going to double to 1.8. So 100% lucky hit chance on your gear means you are doubling your lucky hit chance in all scenarios, even if it's a really small number. So you're bringing 0.9 to 1.8, and so the question is, is that worth it, or is there a more valuable stat that I can build in place of lucky hit that would give me more advantage than me trying to increase my chances of these effects happening? And so if you have a build where you have a lot of lucky hit effects stacked, it's going to become even more valuable, because every point you invest in a lucky hit is going to boost the lucky hit chance for all of those things to happen. So the more kind of lucky hit effects you have stacked between your gear and your skills, the more valuable building lucky hit is going to be. But just realize that the amount it increases is proportional to the base value of the skill, right? Where, like we talked about, 100% lucky hit chance on your gear would bring Hydra from 3 to 6%, and would also, that doubles, it would also double this chance of this Nova happening from 0.9% to 1.8%. But if you're using it with something with Fireball, where it has a 33% chance, 66% chance, that's a 33% jump versus a 0.9% jump, right? And so it's still doubling, but you have a much higher base value that it's doubling. And so I know that's a lot to try to absorb, but this is basically understanding this led me to realize that I don't necessarily want to try to build Lucky Hit right now. And so I basically switched away from these two enchantments. And that's basically what has morphed this build slowly from sort of a lightning summoner build into a lightning meteor build, where I'm running Frozen Orb, which is just a 30% chance straight up to get auto cast. Not a Lucky Hit effect, right? And then Fireball doing its explosion thing. And so, I basically just wanted to create this real quick without spending a crazy amount of time on it, so that everyone can hopefully try to understand exactly what this stat is doing and how it's influencing their skills and gameplay, and sort of how and when to focus on it. And you can kind of calculate your own stuff, right? Using some of the methods from the examples we just talked about to figure out exactly, okay, if I'm trying to get Meteor to proc off of Meteor, it's going to be an 8% chance of 40%, right? So 10% of 40 is 4, right? And then 1% is 0.4. And so if we want 8%, it's 10% minus two 1%, right? So 4% minus 0.4 minus 0.4. So we can figure out pretty quickly that Meteor is going to have a 3.2% chance to proc itself off of its enchantment effect by default. And Meteor is one of the ones that has a higher Lucky Hit chance, right? So if we were able to get 100% Lucky Hit chance on our gear, both of those values are going to double. So the 40% is going to go to 80%, and 8% of that is going to be double 3.2, just the same way this doubled, right? So it's going to be 6.4%. So you're doubling your chance of the enchantment effect happening, but it still may be a pretty low value that you're not satisfied with, right? And so it's really worth kind of just taking a look at your own build, whatever class you are, right? These same principles apply, not just to sorcerer, but to every class. And so it's really worth considering how much am I actually going to be proccing Lucky Hit? And from that, is it worth me investing, building in Lucky Hit to get closer to that chance happening, even if it's a low value, right? And so there may be a build where building a lot of Lucky Hit, even just to raise this from a 0.9% chance to a 1.5% chance, especially because you're getting a lot of the rolls really fast because Hydra's attacking really fast, right? There certainly may be like an end game build where it's worth building Lucky Hit, to try to get this to proc off of Hydra. But for the build I'm doing and my personal play style and what I'm trying to put together, it just didn't seem worth it, and that made me adjust. And so that's basically what the value of understanding it will give you, the ability to adjust based on your play style and based on exactly what you're trying to do, how many Lucky Hit effects you have procced, how much you're trying to invest it in your gear. Are there other stats you can prioritize over Lucky Hit that are more important? Like on Ring, for example, Ring has like all the damage stats, right? And so you can get crit chance, crit damage, vulnerable damage, and elemental damage, and max health on a Ring. So there's like a lot of really high value rolls for Ring, and you might want to prioritize those over like a 6% Lucky Hit chance, which isn't going to do a ton based on everything we just talked about, unless you have a very Lucky Hit focused build or play style. So I hope that wasn't confusing. I usually, like for my other videos, I'll take days to write all this shit out in a very cohesive format, and then I'll try to edit it all. And so this is a little bit of an experiment video where I'm trying to sort of explain something live in one shot, or mostly one shot, one take, and hopefully get the point across to where everyone can understand it better. So I'd love some feedback on this video. If you like this format, if you found it useful, if it was confusing, if you have any questions, please leave all that in the comments, and I promise you I will check it out and get to it as soon as I can. And I'm going to be continue streaming like most days. So if you want to stop by the stream with any questions or clarification, it'll be Zikorik with a 0 on Twitch. And I'll be live most days for like 10 to 12 hours until I hit 100. So feel free to drop by there with questions. Otherwise, take care, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.